Okay, let's talk about money. For so many of us, it's this constant source of stress and, let's be honest, guilt. But what if there was a way to handle your finances that actually felt good, that felt empowering? Today, we're going to break down a completely new way of looking at spending, one that's backed by psychology, that helps you ditch the guilt and start building what author Ramit Sethi calls your rich life. Just think about it for a second. The last time you bought something just for you. Maybe it was a new jacket, a nice dinner out, or heck, even just a fancy coffee. Right after you paid, what was that feeling that washed over you? Was it pure joy? Or was it something else? Ah, there it is, that little voice. If that internal monologue sounds painfully familiar, I'm here to tell you, you are so not alone. This nagging feeling is what we call money guilt, and it is honestly one of the biggest things standing between us and a healthy, happy relationship with our money. All right, so let's really get into this, because understanding this feeling, that's the absolute first step to getting past it. We have to figure out where this guilt actually comes from in the first place. Here's the thing you have to understand. This guilt, it's usually not even about the money itself. Not really. It's about the stories we tell ourselves about the money. If you grew up in a house where money was always tight or a big source of arguments, you might have learned to believe that any spending on yourself is just plain irresponsible or something you haven't really earned. But for some of us, this goes way deeper than just some old childhood messages. It can actually be the result of what experts are now calling financial trauma. And that's a really powerful question to ask yourself. What if that constant knot of anxiety in your stomach, that feeling of dread when you have to open your bills, or that deep-seated fear of spending? What if it's not just a bad habit or some kind of personality quirk? What if it's a real psychological response to things that have happened in your past? So let's be super clear about what we mean by that. Financial trauma is that emotional scar tissue that gets left behind after a major financial hardship. It's the constant fear that you'll never ever get out of debt. It's that nagging worry that total financial collapse is just one bad day away, even if, on paper, your situation has gotten a lot better. So what kind of events are we talking about here? Well, it could be anything from growing up with that constant money stress to the shock of a sudden job loss. It could be from being scammed or betrayed, or just being crushed under a mountain of debt. All these things can leave these really deep emotional wounds that end up steering your financial choices for years, even decades. Okay, so we've kind of diagnosed the problem, right? We see the guilt, we see the trauma. Now let's pivot to a really, really cool part of the solution. And it involves completely rewiring how we think about the act of spending itself. This next part requires a pretty huge mindset shift, so stick with me. Instead of looking at a purchase and seeing it as indulgent or wasteful or a sign of failure, what if we saw it as a tool? A tool that we can use intentionally to manage our own well-being. And believe it or not, research actually gives us a name for this. It's called self-gifting. And there are two main types. On one hand, you've got reward self-gifting. This is when you buy yourself something to celebrate a win, to keep that good feeling going. But then, on the other hand, there's therapeutic self-gifting. This is when you buy something to help repair your mood after a tough day or a big disappointment. The point is, spending isn't just spending. It can be a deliberate act of taking care of yourself. Okay, so this all sounds great, but how do we actually put it into practice without going broke? Well, let's get into a real concrete system that takes these psychological ideas and turns them into a plan you can actually use. Now, most of us have tried traditional budgeting, right? It's not about restriction. Don't buy that latte. Cut back on this. Say no to that. And honestly, it usually just makes you feel guilty and it's almost impossible to stick with. The conscious spending approach is the total opposite. The whole idea is to spend extravagantly on the things you absolutely love, and then cut costs mercilessly on the stuff you don't really care about. And here's what that system looks like broken down. It's a simple plan that divides your take-home pay into 4 buckets, each with a target percentage. And listen, the goal is not to be perfect. The goal is just to have a clear, simple roadmap for where your money is going on purpose. So let's break them down real quick. You've got your fixed costs, that's your rent, your bills, the must-haves. Then you've got investments, that's money for future you. Savings, that's for your shorter-term goals, like a vacation or an emergency fund. And then you have the magic category, guilt-free spending. This is money that you have planned to spend on whatever you want. No guilt allowed. Now, this system sounds great on paper, but to really feel its power, let's look at a real-world example of what happens when these numbers get totally, completely out of whack. So I want you to meet Forrest and Kathleen. They were on Ramit Sethi's podcast, and after they actually did the math on their spending, they discovered this shocking number, 91%. That's how much of their take-home pay was going toward just one category, their fixed costs. And as Ramit points out right here, when that number is so high, the whole system is just broken from the start. I mean, there's literally no money left for anything else. No savings, no investments, and definitely no guilt-free spending. That single number is the source of all their stress. And here is the brutal result. When they added everything up, all the other spending like going out to eat and shopping, they were actually in the red by over $5,000 every single month. They were spending way more than they made, and, well, you can see that number on the screen. It is an absolute recipe for disaster. So how do you avoid that? Well, the beautiful thing about this conscious spending plan is how simple it is. First, you just figure out where your money is going right now. Then, and this is the best part, you automate everything. You set up automatic transfers into different accounts for your savings, your investments, and your spending. Then you just check in once a month to see how it's going, and you tweak the numbers as your life changes. The system does all the hard work for you. And this, right here, brings us to the ultimate points of this entire system. Because it's not just about managing your money better, it's about completely changing your mindset from the ground up. When you think about it, there are two totally different ways to go through life. There's the surviving mentality, which is driven by fear, the fear of falling behind, of making a mistake. And then there's the thriving mentality. That's about passion, creativity, and feeling like you're actually in the driver's seat of your own life. This whole conscious spending plan, it's just a tool to help you move from that left column over to the right. And that is the most important thing to remember. This is not about pinching pennies or agonizing over every single purchase. It's about deciding what a rich life actually means to you, and then building a financial engine that automatically works in the background to make that life a reality. So, I'll just leave you with this question. What does your rich life actually look like? Is it traveling more? Is it working less? Is it being able to treat your friends and family without stressing about the bill? Once you can answer that question, you can start using your money not as a source of guilt, but as the most powerful tool you have to build that life.